Hey everybody, this is Josh Runquist here, and 4 years later, I feel it's kind of my due diligence to do the next episode of Something Gives. Now, if you've followed this series back when it started 4 years ago, I had every intention in the world of making this a weekly show where I'll go about my weekly mental health struggles, but I wanted to get a guest on every single week to deal with their struggles, see how they manage everything, and be thankful that we're all here. Of course, that is not the case of what happened. It basically just became people dropping out from doing it, which I totally understand, but I went more and more in depth into my mental psyche. And of course, in 2019, a whole load of bombshells started happening in my personal life that pretty much had to deal with all my mental health struggles, led to a near suicide attempt, near so many different things that happened. And with the last episode, Nightmare to Remember, I really did not want to continue the show because it was just all becoming too much for me with everything that was going on. But I do feel, again, it's my due diligence to kind of do an update because this has been nagging at me for quite a bit of time. I know I've met a lot of people who care about my well-being, and the last 4 years have had a lot of things going on with it that has risen me up and also pushed me down a lot. And I've lost a lot of good people in the last 4 years. I've lost family in the last 4 years. And I've gone through a lot of mental anguish in the last 4 years. I might not be covering everything as I normally do. I like to go completely off the cuff, off the top of my head. And I just want this to be as real as possible. So I guess I might as well go into probably the biggest change in this whole story that I've talked about with Something Gives, is that back in December 6th, 2021, my dad died. He died of a combination of COVID and heart failure, and of course diabetes as well. I know that did not help whatsoever, but he just had heart attack after heart attack after heart attack, and then he got COVID, one more heart attack, and that kind of finished him off. If you're a professional wrestling fan, you know Bray Wyatt went the same way. He got COVID, he started having heart problems, and that's the way that he went out. So when that happened earlier this year, just a couple months ago, that really messed me up because that really brought a lot of things about how my dad died. The last conversation that I had with my dad was on my birthday in 2021, August 19th, and my dad called me to let me know that he married the woman who said that I should have died instead of my brother, that the world would be a better place if I wasn't here, because he actually gave something to life. And by that meaning that he was making more money than I was. And I know to a lot of people, money is the only thing that matters in life, just having everything, having all the income in the world. And that's never going to matter to me as much as the people that you have around you, the good experiences that you have, and just making sure that you can have a roof over your head, having something to eat every day, and staying warm or cool, depending on the situation. But a week and a half before my birthday, my dad married, which is unfortunately now my mother-in-law. And I believe the main reason that this happened was because my dad knew that he was going to die soon. And he cut me out of his will and gave everything to my now mother-in-law, which is completely and utterly fine with me, as the only things I ever wanted when my brother died and now when my dad died, I just wanted my stuff back. As some of you may know, my house got foreclosed on back in 2011, and I had to be out in January 2012. And not everything that was in my childhood home could come with me with where I moved to. So my dad kept it. A lot of my video games, a lot of wrestling stuff, a lot of things that I kept as a kid. That's all I wanted back. And I never got them back. A lot of the things I didn't get back anyways. I did get some. I got a lot of my action figures back. But that was it. But apparently, in the will, I was to get my dad's trailer, which we always referred to as the cabin, even though it was just a single-line trailer that was pretty much dilapidated, had chipmunks and mice always running through it and everything, and in an outhouse as well. Apparently my dad loved using that outhouse more than using an actual toilet, but I guess that's just kind of the backwoods thing, isn't it? But no, he left that to my now mother-in-law, which is completely and utterly fine. But I did hang up on my dad after he called me because I was so infuriated that he married a woman that wanted me dead instead of my brother, which I can't believe that you would even insinuate having one over the other instead of having both of us alive. But hey, that's the way things go, isn't it? So I angrily hung up on him, and 2 days later, I got a text from him saying that he had a heart attack right after I hung up on him, implying that I caused him to have a heart attack when I hung up on him. And then, a few months later, in December 6th, he passed away. Now, you would think that would be the end of the story right there, and unfortunately, you'd be wrong. As I did not hear anything from anyone except for my mom. My real mom, not my mother-in-law. No, I haven't talked to her since she told me that I should have died instead of my brother. My mom left me a voicemail. I immediately ignored her, so it was left into voicemail, and she just gave one of the most Oscar-worthy voicemails ever about the passing of my dad. And I say that because I have some more information that goes along with that, but I'll get to that. But basically, my dad was in the hospital, died of COVID and heart failure. Now, with that, you would think that the funeral would happen not long after, but a huge part of it was COVID was still pretty rampant in 2021, so the funeral did not happen. A memorial service did not happen until August 2022, and I had no idea about it until about a month beforehand, where it turns out they were having the service, and no one told me. I found it on a Facebook event page because I was looking things up on Google to see when my dad's funeral was. Did I miss it? Was it coming up? I had no idea. And funny enough, it turned out to be the exact same Saturday that Rammstein was going to be playing at US Bank Stadium. A good friend of mine came up to Minnesota, bought me a ticket, was going to be staying with me, and we were going to go see Rammstein. Unfortunately, I was not able to go to Rammstein for that reason, but I also did not go to my dad's memorial service, and it was a real tricky situation trying to figure it out, because I figured it was my dad, I should pay my final respects. I wanted to say what I wanted to say to him, or a picture of him, whatever. It would have just made me feel better. But then I realized that I was not going to get that closure that I wanted because he wasn't alive to hear it. Also a huge part, I know I wasn't welcome there. My dad's motorcycle club was there. Yes, my dad was a biker, and there were some real shady people a part of that bike club, and that was not something I wanted to deal with. My mother-in-law was going to be there. That was also something I didn't want to deal with. And there was other people in my family that I don't know if they wanted anything to do with me or not. So instead of going to have fun and seeing Rammstein, or instead of mourning and seeing my dad's memorial, mourning, be happy, whatever the case is, I don't know how I would have really felt while I was there. But instead of doing either of those things, I just stayed home and cried. And I cried hard. I cried at everything that I've had to deal with. I've cried about everything since then. 34 years old, just a couple days after my birthday, they decided to do a memorial service for my dad. It feels like it was an extra FU to me, because it was the Saturday after my birthday, of all days in my life, unless something happened with my mother-in-law and my dad. There was nothing special in our family for that particular day to have his memorial service. It could have been any other day of the year, but it just had to be a couple days after my birthday. And that ripped me apart. Again, it just felt like it was one more giant FU to me. And I've had no contact with my mother-in-law since. I haven't heard from really anybody since that time. But there was a lot of other things that did start to happen around that time. And another huge part of that was my mom, which I alluded to before when she left that voicemail about my dad passing. I wouldn't have found out about my dad dying unless she called. Part of me is happy about that. Part of me wishes I never knew. Because every time family stuff starts to come up again, it just tears me apart inside, knowing everything that my dad did to my family, to me, to other people, things I still won't mention. Everything from beating me, to stealing money, to lying about money, to the verbal abuse, to just go ahead and telling me to unalive myself. He only did it once, but it still really has affected me to this day. Of course, when my brother died in 2019, those were his final words, trying to coax me into unaliving myself, so he could show up at my funeral, piss on my face, and laugh. I'll never forget those words. It haunts me to this day, 4 years later. But again, with my mom, I did call her back not long after, and I found out some real bombshells with her. First of all, everything that my dad supposedly did that I can't talk about, and I will not talk about until at least one of the parties is no longer with us. I mean the victims, not my dad. I'm waiting for that moment. Who knows when that'll happen, if it happens. But my mom knew all along. She lied about it all my life. She lied about it as soon as I found out about it. She lied about it until I caught her in the lie. I also tried to get her to say anything else that I don't know. And, of course, my mom, being the Oscar-worthy actress that she is, deny, really taking that Trump approach where she denied everything until I caught her in a lie. And then she had no way out of it because she wasn't smart enough to talk her way out of the lie. But I caught her messing up her words, messing up what she said, and she admitted that what my dad did 100% happened. And she didn't care. She still wanted to be with my dad more than anything. Which is also funny because she also tried to go back to her ex-husband before he died, but that's a whole different other story that I'm not really involved in because I only met the man once and he commented on how fat I am, so I really don't need to have that kind of person in my life. But of course he's dead now, so I really don't care about him. But yeah, the biggest turning point in my family's breakdown turned out to be 100% true. And the parties involved, they were not lying. And I was caught in the middle of it without being told what actually happened. Then I found out what happened. And I didn't want to believe it myself. And part of me did not believe it for the longest time. Then everything started to make sense. Then it turned out I was a fool. And those things really did happen. And it wrecks me to this day that my father did the things that he did. And it also hurts me that the implication that I caused my father to die. So let's recap on that. My dad implied that I caused him to have his last heart attack, which caused him to die. My brother, on dialysis, a week and a half before he died, tried to get me to unalive myself. That's my family. That's my legacy. Now, what will be my mom's final words before she goes? Well, there's a couple things that go along with that, because I mentioned about the stuff about my dad being true. I also caught my mom, again, I'll mention it again, her Oscar-worthy performance in all of her life. This lifelong role that she's had. Because it turns out, she's been faking a lot of the problems that she's been having. She's been doing it for attention. And she caught herself in a lie admitting that. Now, I'm not denying at all that she had mental health problems, and I think a lot of that had to deal with things, but my mom was able to switch personalities on the split of a dime, and apparently she was in control of the whole thing because her parents did the same thing. She learned that's how you get what you want, be it crying, being angry, whatever the case is. Just switch your personality immediately, and people will be so shocked that you'll get what you want. And boy, my brother learned that pretty perfectly. Of course, he only chose anger and hatred. But yeah, again, I still believe my mom has mental health problems. I don't think they ever went away. I think the real breakdown that she had in 2000 when we started watching my oldest niece for a month while my oldest sister went back to work, that was 100% true. That really happened. I don't think she was faking it whatsoever, because she had nothing to gain from it. It was only me and my oldest niece, who was just born. She had nothing to gain from it. But as time went on, it turns out she really was faking a lot of things. And besides hiding $100,000 from the family, possibly even more, besides not cleaning after herself so someone else would do it, beating herself to get revenge on my brother and me, all the lies that she spread to friends and family of hers, all of that seemed to happen. And it just takes the life out of me. So after learning those two things, although learning that she knew about what my dad did, that's what made me hang up on her, and I told her I never wanted to hear from her again. Thankfully, up to this point, she has respected my wishes. Although a huge part of that is I blocked her number. And then my sisters come into play. Around the time that my dad died, in fact, I think it was even the same day, my oldest sister reached out to me asking if I wanted to go see a concert. You can't fake that kind of timing. I won't say who it was, but it was definitely a show I didn't want to go to, but I know it was potentially her trying to reach out. I don't know. But I took that as a positive, and I just wanted to reach out to her because my family is dying off, and I wanted at least one person left in my family that I could reach out to, that I could love, that I could trust, and she would be the only one that would be. And what a fool I was to try to do that. What started happening was she wanted to see me. I wanted to see her. And I busted out in tears talking to her, talking about all the struggles that I've been going through with the family, with myself, life in general. And she blew me off. She said that she wanted to come visit me because I'm like a half hour away from her, something like that. Half hour, 45 minutes, I'm not entirely sure. I used to live almost 3 hours away from her, and I'm basically just like one road away from her now, if I just go straight south, and she blew me off again. Then a month later, I reached out to her, and I was very, very upset about it, and she either just completely forgot, or she just talked about how busy she was. I let her know that all she had to do was tell me that she wasn't going to show up, that she couldn't do it. Instead, she literally just ghosted me for a month. And I got sick of everyone's shit. I left my mom another text message asking her to never talk to me again. I left a text from my oldest sister, half-sister, that I never wanted to talk to her again. And then I left the biggest one from my now mother-in-law that I never wanted to hear from her again. I sent them all pretty much in a row with anger fueled in my veins. Something that I could never show my family before. It was always fear up until this point. And kind of just like the title of this show, something gave. Something gives. I had to give out. It was enough. And thankfully, I never heard from my mom from that point on. She never responded back because I blocked the number. My mother-in-law did the same thing. With Carol, I didn't because I totally forgot in the midst of anger and everything. Now go into 2023. Back in February and March of 2023, a couple things happened. One, my mom, I never really found out what happened. I have guesses based on what I've had to deal with in the past. But either my mom has become so feeble that she can't take care of herself, or she got kicked out of her assisted income-based apartment. Because if you checked out any of my other shows that I've done on my mom, she lived in complete and utter filth. She would have rotting food sitting out for weeks, if not months on end. She just had garbage bags filled to the brim next to the door. She would have knickknacks and magazines and the same Cher CD scattered all over the apartment where you could not see the floor. And that's what my mom did in my childhood home as well before she left. She just decided to completely and utterly give up on herself. And she made a huge mistake with that because no one wanted to help her until she had all these written mail letters that said that if she did not clean her apartment by this specific day, she was going to get kicked out. Since my brother lived just a couple blocks away, he always helped out. I was in Minnesota at this time, but I was asked repeatedly to help her, and I declined because one lesson that you should learn, and it's a lesson that you learn the older that you get, is that you owe your abusers nothing. So I wasn't going to help any of my abusers anymore, and I just gave up everything by that time in 2017, 2018, 2019. I stopped helping anyone in that situation all completely together for my own sanity. Because I probably would have taken more attempts at my life had I continued to keep them in my life the way that they wanted to be a part of my life for some reason. And of course that reason was to use me for their benefit. And of course, with my mom crushing her dog to death, crushing her dog, and the dog just dying in the middle of her living room, struggling to breathe, instead of taking the dog to the vet, that's something I just find very unforgivable as well. But the point is back to 2023 again. My mom had to leave her apartment, and I honestly don't know where she is right now. She could be in assisted living, she could be living with my oldest sister, she could be anywhere right now. And then I got fed into a group chat that involved both my half-sisters, my nieces from my oldest sister's side because my nephew and niece from my other half-sister's side were not involved, but also their boyfriends because my oldest sister wanted us to all come together to help my mom because family means more than anything in the world, even more than your well-being, right? Well, no. I did not participate. I did not send one single text in that entire group chat. And they started to notice. Then, of course, my oldest half-sister started getting very angry at me for not responding. Then I made a video talking about my situation because I was doing little mini mental health updates and how much this was really affecting me, seeing everything that was going on with my mom and my family. Then they started calling me out on things. They were making fun of me, accusing me of things, just nanny boo-boo stuff, to some things that were really, truly hurtful. And I did the one thing that I never have done in my life before. I didn't engage, no matter what they said, and they were trying to coax me into fighting with them, as that's what my family loves to do. They love to fight verbally, sometimes physically, sometimes even worse. But just like war games, sometimes the only way to win is to not play. And I did not play into their games. I finally blocked both my half-sisters, and I've yet to ever hear from them again. My second oldest niece, which is the youngest daughter of my oldest half-sister, I know it's very confusing, she reached out to me a couple months after that, just wanting to see how I'm doing, wanting to stay in touch with me. And I said no. And I do regret that. I regret all of it because I just feel that because my family is the way that it is, no matter who it is in my family, everyone talks, everyone says things, everyone talks about each other. I'm doing it now. And I didn't want anything that I would say to her in confidence to be said to my oldest sister. And I just really got the feeling that she would say something to her. And I just didn't trust that. And I'd never heard from her again up to this point. It really hurt saying that as well, too, because when my brother's funeral happened, she was one of the only people in my entire family to straight out talk to me. Not talk to me about my brother, but just talk. And it was one of the best feelings that I ever had. It was like the real cathartic moment was being able to talk to her. And she is apparently doing some really good things right now. She moved to a different state. She's married to someone that's going into the FBI. Like, she has her shit together, and I couldn't be prouder of her. Maybe she'll be hearing this, and you know, if you are hearing this somehow, some way, I'm really proud of you. I love that you love Electric Light Orchestra. I love everything that you've been able to accomplish in life, despite the parents that you've had, despite the blood that's a part of your veins. You've done some great things. You and your sister have done some great things, and I just hope you continue to keep being the great people that you are. I wish I could say the same about your mom, but that's between me and her. Now, I probably should mention that my other sister, again, involved, who was probably the most hurtful of everybody, as she hasn't straight out talked to me. I have not heard her voice since 2009. Now, she was talking to me in 2019 during my brother's funeral through text. And then in 2023, she was just trying to start a fight with me. They were both very upset with me that I would not take my mom in. I live in a one-bedroom apartment. There is nowhere for her to be here. There's no way I could afford it, and I can't afford that with my mental health, with everything that she's done to me, everything my whole family has done with me. You have to cast them out at some point if that toxicity is too much, because if you don't, it will destroy you. And I already feel that it has destroyed me. I'm amazed that I'm even talking into this microphone right now. But I had to stop somewhere, and I'm glad that I finally did. But the reason I bring up my other half-sister, even though I've blocked her, I do have her son, my nephew, on Facebook. And I constantly, occasionally anyways, see pictures of them together, which really, really confuses me. Because he told me that he tried to unalive himself at least 2 times because of her. The family that he was part of, all of it. Now, I see them the best of friends. And I just really hate that notion that your family is family no matter what. Yeah, relation is all that matters. And I just don't buy into that whatsoever, because it can destroy you, like I've mentioned. And even though it doesn't really sound like it right now, I am so much better off without my family in my life. even though I still get PTSD and trauma flashbacks and all these different things that happen, that something will trigger me and I will have a flashback or I think about things or something that happens. It's so much better dealing with that than having it constantly ongoing. And I just cannot do that to myself anymore. And if you have anyone in your life like that, you should not have them a part of your life, no matter who they are, no matter what the situation is, because it's not worth your mental health. You need to get away from it all. I think you need to say your piece and walk away. Now, as far as other things for me, in 2023, after all these things happened with all these text messages and getting blocked and everything, or blocking the numbers and everything, I just about took another attempt on my life. Almost did attempt number 10. And someone online who I'll never find out who it was because I've tried reaching out online to see who did it. I'll never find out. But someone called the police on me for a welfare check. And things have been changed ever since then. I've had to deal with the county that I live in, with social workers, either every day or every month since March. At one point, I was getting a social worker who was checking on me every day to make sure that I wasn't going to unalive myself. But basically, just to keep it shorter than, well, it doesn't need to go as long as it needs to, but basically, the state came and wanted me to, on my own accord, try to get into therapy on medication and try to better myself. And I've learned that is not really working in my best interest. Despite it being in an attempt for my best interest, it is not working out the way that I want it to. I've been on several different kinds of medications to try to help with my depression, anxiety, PTSD, trauma, all that stuff. And everything has affected me in some bad way, from sleeping 18 hours a day to functions in my body not working the way that you want to. You can imagine what that is. All these different things with different medications. I'm currently on Lexapro right now on 15 milligrams, and it's messing with me pretty hard. I constantly feel tired all the time, and it feels like a lot of the problems that I was having before I started Lexapro are starting to come back. I am dealing with a lot of trauma flashbacks, the PTSD, my anxiety is going through the roof all the time, my depression's out of control, and I feel like I'm beneath the waves right now, which is part of why I'm recording this episode. I'm just waiting for it to kick in. The next time I talk to my psychiatrist will be on All Hallows Eve, no less. And we'll see what happens from there. Maybe I just need another boost of Lexapro, maybe I need to try something else. I'm not real sure. But I also have now a monthly social worker who has not been doing their job whatsoever. I was supposed to be getting some stuff done with benefits and setting things up, trying to get into EMDR therapy, all these different things. And they have not followed through on any of it. And I am on the verge of just declining to continue to go forward because this is just not working for me anymore. It's been several months of trying to get things to work through, and the person that comes over always seems like they have something more important on their mind, and in some cases maybe it is more important, but you're coming over to see me to talk about the situations that I'm in. I should be the main focus of the appointment, because otherwise what's the point? And that has just been another struggle I've been dealing with as well too, because I was constantly reassured that they were trying to do all this stuff for my best interest, that they wanted me to be okay, to show that I can overcome my mental health struggles. And what I've basically learned is all I can really rely on, at least for the time being, is myself to get over my mental health struggles. Everything else can help, but ultimately it falls on me. I'm the only one that can try to take chicken shit and make it into chicken salad. I need to try to just find something good in myself to be able to move forward. Otherwise, I can't do it. And that's kind of the struggle that I'm in right now. That's some of the realization that I'm going through right now. Even as I'm talking right now, I'm getting some of this realization going on within me. I need to do it myself because everyone else in my life has either let me down, wants me to fail, or does not care. I need to do it myself. And with that, there's actually some great positives that have happened over the last 4 years. I've met some great people in my life that are still good friends to this day. And of course, the opposite, I've lost a lot of good people since then as well too. Probably sick of my mental health shit, or just life getting in the way. So many different ways to go about things. As of recording this, I've hit over 900 interviews, of course. And of course, the biggest positive is I'm no longer that drummer guy. I now go under Heavy Debriefings. That was a huge one for me because I haven't played drums in so long. It's been almost 8 years since I've played a show, and it's been 5 or 6 years since I've picked up a pair of sticks and actually played on a drum set. And Heavy Debriefings just feels like a great name for me because I talk about a lot of heavy things, heavy music, mental health stuff, things that people enjoy if they enjoy heavy music, like TV, movies, video games, all that kind of stuff. And of course, with that came with the podcast, which I now do with the Metal Fairy. We're just about to record episode 12. As I'm recording this, that'll be tomorrow when we do that, or the next day. Got to figure out the situation for that. But that's rejuvenated me having a co-host for the podcast. I actually look forward to that more than anything else during the week. But I'm still in the same one-bedroom apartment that I've been living in since the last episode. I have been just trying to go as strong as I possibly can. And there is a lot of moments where I can't keep my head above water, but it always does bounce back up. Maybe it's just due to the buoyancy. I don't know. But I am still here. I'm recording this right now, which I didn't even think was possible because I didn't necessarily want to revisit this. But so many things have been on my mind lately, dealing with family and my mental health struggles and everything else. It feels good to do this again, and I'm not going to say this is the final episode, because there's no guarantee of that. But I do feel a bit more cathartic now that I've gotten it off my chest. It feels good that I did this, and I think I'll just cut it off here as it feels like a good spot. I want to thank you very much for checking this out. For some people, this will be the very first episode of Something Gives that they've checked out, which I highly recommend checking out the other ones. If you care about the music stuff or the podcast or anything else I do, of course, that is right here on the Heavy Debriefings YouTube channel. And yeah, again, I'm not saying this is the last episode, but I guess I'll just say until next time, for Heavy Debriefings, for myself, it's Josh Runquist for the Something Gives podcast, saying, see ya.